we're going to do now is move into the top 5 NFT projects of 2021. And number 1, I think I'll let you take this one away.
Vee Friends. Yeah. Anyone that's heard this show more than 5 minutes has probably heard me mention this. This project's, I think, is great. Gary Vaynerchuk launched these in May, had some hiccups with the launch, which we've seen again and again and again. This is all new stuff, but did a Dutch auction, sold 10,000 of these. They're not generative. They were pre-drawn and varying several characters. Each one has kind of a basic edition and then different levels of rarity. They all give you access to VeeCon, which is a conference Gary Vaynerchuk is going to put on. This was interesting, I think, at the time, because it was one of the first projects that had some built-in utility, IRL utility right out of the gate. And then some of these had additional utilities. So you had these access tokens that would let you have Zoom calls with Gary. Some would let you, there was like one where you could go to a Knicks game with him. One that he would come on your podcast and you could interview him. I really like this because for a few reasons. One, Gary V is really good at communicating tough concepts to a wide audience and getting them on board and excited about it. And I think we need some of that. He also talks passionately about it. And I think that that's important too, to get to spread awareness. And he's like, whether you like or dislike him, he has really good instincts for what is going to be a thing. Yeah, I like these. I could talk a lot about him. I love that the drawings are terrible too. I like that he's saying, like, he knows that they are what they are, and he wants to build an animation studio and have these things redrawn by artists to look fantastic and be in cartoons and movies. I dig it. Well, I like that they're based on values he's into. Like, the whole thing is cool, I think.
Okay, so we now have number 4, doing our countdown to number 1, and this is going to be one that I think might be controversial. Not that it's in the top 5, but that it showed up at number 4. And that is, well, this is Crummy Squiggle, but this is symbolic of art blocks. So you've been following art blocks for a long time. Mm-hmm. I mean, how important has art blocks been to this space? And particularly in the first half of the year, art blocks was all of the action, really.
Yeah, there was a lot of it. And it went up in value tremendously. So there was that aspect of it, but also it was unique to this format, right? Like, you're creating generative digital art,
right,
that can only be done in this way. I think it's really thoughtful. It's a neat way to think about using the format and the medium in a way that you couldn't do it in another medium. Yeah.
Well, and I think of what they did. I mean, like with Ringers, Fidenza, made a couple of artists famous, that like really famous.
There was like that big joke about them minting, like, as soon as, if an artist had a piece up, they were like, okay, now that person's a millionaire. These things were so hot at one point between gas, and it was just insane how fast that stuff was going.
So next up, we have number 3. I don't know what people are going to think about this. I think some people are going to be mad that it's 3, but you have to wait for 1 and 2. With that said, I think there's a strong argument to be made that this is the number 1 NFT project of the year. And this is our friends, the Bored Apes. Okay, so let me start with this. And you have a lot of context here because you've been there since basically the beginning. I came in the mutant period, but I think about just all of the innovations that they've done. The the idea that, you know, they came out with this generative collection. Okay. It wasn't the first generative collection, but they really focused on this idea of utility and that they were creating a club. So they created an immediate thing on their website where you had some access that other people didn't have. Okay. You know, it's like, that was sort of interesting. And then like it started doing so well, they actually bought physical real estate. So they actually have clubs. They did a yacht party. They've done games, but the fact that they did the mutants, and I just heard Gordon talk about this. He said the mutants were on the schedule. They're on their map from the very beginning. They always knew they were going to do them. In fact, they'd already started the art before they dropped the apes. Hmm. But the way they rolled it out with the serums, and that it was a free drop, and that those free items immediately went to like 3.5 ETH for existing ape holders. Like, talk about just like a quick way to monetize. I think most of those
crazy
ape holders wish they'd save them, because I think they're at 11 now. But then actually in between that, they did the dogs because they wanted companions, you know, before the mutants. But this idea in the multiple serums, and we just saw a serum, the mega serum, go for what, $3.5 million. And this is one of the early players in the Ethereum space. He then did his mega mutant, which is the DMT one. It's just like amazing. I don't know. It's just like there's, and then they just did a deal with Animoca Brands. And so they're going to have this big Web3 game. It's just like they hit everything just right. Let's go to number 2. This one might be a little mysterious. POC. Okay, so I know a lot of people who are aware of the NFT space know nothing about POC. And you really have to, if you want to learn about POC, you really have to spend some time to figure it out. So many weird things he's done. But POC was pretty popular earlier this year. He did a couple of drops, you know, that one particular in April that did 30 million. It was really a cool mechanic where you buy these little blocks. And if you bought 6 blocks, you get 2 NFTs. There's 1 of 5 and 1 of 1. Raised a lot of money through auction on that. He did Lost Poets, which was also pretty interesting in terms of like, you minted it, but then you could transform it and all these other types of things. And so he's been the one who's been experimenting with NFT mechanics and transformation, maybe more than anybody. And he has a really loyal following. And this project that we have on the screen right now is merch. It just raised $91 million. 250,000 NFTs. So 250,000. Think about that. Like, everyone's focused. Rarity. Oh, 10,000 is too much. Give me a collection of 1,000 or 10 or whatever it is. And he rolls out 250,000. But the mechanic on this was amazing. It's like the more you buy, the bigger like the object is. And then some objects get special qualities randomly. The biggest one gets a special drop. But if you buy in secondary and add to your collection, you could actually displace the number one. And I don't know how they get the alpha drop off of this. But I mean, if you just look at it like the fact that there's all of these post mint, or there's mint mechanics, which are unique. And then there's post mint mechanics that are unique. I don't think there's anybody who's more innovative than POC in this space. All right. Number 1, top NFT project of the year, People's Everydays. But we get to say Beeple because, so first of all, we'll talk about Everydays. I won't say it put NFTs on the map, but it raised awareness like nothing else, because when something goes for a single piece goes for $69 million in a space that had seen like just a handful of $1 million transactions. Actually, a few months earlier, or a few weeks earlier, one of his NFTs, which I think sold in December for 600,000, sold for 6 million, and like it had this big appreciation. But this was important. It was a big number. Metaverse bought it, which is a fund. Metacoven and Tubator run, very active in this space. But this showed everybody, wow, there's something interesting happening here. It's like that seismic event. This is the Pokemon Go moment. This is the iPhone moment of NFTs. It focused all the attention. And I think it set the stage for things like art blocks to explode, Bored Ape to explode. It created these avenues where people who previously had not paid attention started paying attention, and other people who had been sort of playing around in different areas started to say, oh, wait a second, this might be more important than I thought it was.
Yeah. I think this tipped everything into motion. It was happening, but this was what, as soon as this happened, then everything started going nuts. Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's a great story. Like this, again, like people have strong opinions about people that are in the limelight, but he's been doing this for a long time, like creating original art every single day. Like this is such a great story. And everyone kind of is like, yeah. And people that don't know think like, what, this dude just came out of nowhere and sold a 69 million. Like, no, this dude's been doing this every single day.
Yeah.
It's just like such a great story about conviction and preservation or
grinding.
Exactly. Yeah. And then finally getting like,
and he never thought any of this would be worth anything. And he basically says a lot of this is trash.
Yeah.
You can go to his Instagram, see how he really refers to it. He's like, a lot of it's not very good, but I've done it every day, and some of it is good. So the provenance is really important here. And, I think the interesting thing is that set him up for doing another piece, Human One, which sold for $30 million. And I bring that up, like, obviously, because it's interesting that he did that. Those two together was almost $100 million this year. Plus there were some other things that sold smaller earlier in the year. He had $100 million year with basically two pieces. This Human One was different because it's like this physical box and it's video and 4 sides. It's like really incredible. I recommend people check it out. But I bring it up for another reason, is that we definitely started the year with art leading the NFT space.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. So there was, we had Beeple, we had, several other folks, we talked about Xcopy. We had art blocks really pioneering a lot of that. And then, people talk about JPEG summer. It was PFP summer, right? And that lasted for part of the year, not half the year. I would say that was really hot, maybe in the July to November period.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Bored Ape predates that, like Bored Ape really got hot, like late June, early July. So we had the PFP, and then we finished the year with art. We have another big POC drop. We have the Human One from Beeple. And so it's really interesting because people were getting frustrated with the space. And if you spend a lot of time in NFT Twitter, you only really spend time with either they talk about games or PFPs projects. Yeah. Very few people ever talk about art. But if you just look at the market more holistically, pure art bookended the year.